Hey students, this is Dr. Miller, and this is the assignment number 11, photo editing, and this is your feedback. In general, I don't think it was the best work that I've seen from several of the students, but it's okay. Some of you actually had some really good photos, like this is an excellent portrait by Landon. And his editing was fairly subtle, and that's okay, particularly when you have a great image to start with. So here's his original, and we'll look at on the left shoulder and arm over here. You've got a shadowing that adds three-dimensional quality to it. And so there is some enhancement and there is some improvement. This is also Landon's, and he took this shot and he just kind of made it a little more gritty, maybe a little more black and white. But again, you start with a good photo. You don't need to do a huge amount unless you want to. This is Allison's, and it's a good photo, good concert photo. And this is what she did with it. She added a vignette effect, changed the contrast a bit. So I think this is very successful. Started with a good photo and made it better. Now, the one thing I would like to see is, remember the rule of thirds? I kind of recropped this. So it would be more appropriate over here in terms of your basic composition. Some of you still are putting your subjects always in the dead center of the photograph. That can work, particularly when the image of the subject is dominant. But Allison did a good job with that particular post-production editing. This is also Allison's, and I guess this is Field or Auditorium. Kind of dark here, so she was able to use the editing to lighten it up, and you can get a better view of what's in there. So that's a successful edit. Theresa, I think she used Photoshop Pro, and she used a definite effect here, but I think particularly with this photograph, I think it works very nicely. This is also Theresa's, and this is one of the things that you can do with a good editing system and some patience is you can completely replace the background. So this background is kind of ho-hum, and this background is great. So nice work on that one. Jade took this kind of not so spectacular shot and cropped out the car and made it a little bigger and added some text. Fine. And this is another one of Jade Williams, and I actually really like this shot. I'm a big fan of graffiti photography. Not a lot of difference, but the one on the right, particularly with the cropping and maybe some contrast there, it's good. Megan Phillips figured out how to do some layering, and so she used that to actually change the color of the flower. So that's pretty impressive in terms of the editing that she did. She figured out how to do layers, which is great, and I think she did some of this work on her phone, which is even more impressive. This is another one of hers, and she added kind of a color hue filter effect, made it interesting. Destiny, pretty straightforward on this, a nice shot of flowers, but adding the contrast really kind of makes it pop. And this is a great shot. I really like this one. And then she did some manipulation on it and made it a little bit more abstract, but I definitely like this. Very well done. Okay, so we're almost done. We're going to have a portfolio due on the 7th, and we're going to have the exam open from the 7th through the 9th, and I will get the kind of helper worksheet out there in about 2 days, and you can go through that. But it's not a particularly difficult exam. What you will need to do is to kind of go back and review some of the material, particularly some that were in some of the PowerPoints that were available, or some of the videos that talked about the kind of elements of photography and history of photography. So there'll be some questions from that. But the rest of the stuff is pretty common sense. So if you have any questions, just let me know.